Joining me right now is retired four-star General Jack Keane. General, I wanted to be saying something very different right now. I wanted to see a strong president up there making overtures, as he should, with Russia. That's fine. But why isn't he communicating the elephant in the room? Why is he suggesting that our intelligence maybe doesn't have their facts right?
Yeah, it's a stunning and disappointing revelation here today. I mean, there's two major things that have taken place here. One is the actual summit itself that went on for a number of hours, one-on-one, and then also with their staff. And hopefully there was more teeth in that from the United States perspective than what we saw at the press conference. But the press conference is also very important because the whole world is watching that. They don't get a chance to watch the arm wrestling that goes on at the summit. So the press conference is something the president's got to go into, be well prepared for, and absolutely commit himself to knock the ball out of the park. And I'll tell you what, that was so disappointing. Two reasons why it's disappointing. You obviously harped on it. The fact that he walked away from his intelligence community and did not stand behind them when they absolutely have the goods on Putin's meddling in our election. So much so that Special Prosecutor Mueller was able to use that intelligence information to convince everyday Americans in a grand jury process to indict 12 of Putin's thugs who actually did it. And that's alarming that the president would not stand behind that entire intelligence community and judicial process and back them up 100%. And he should have reiterated something he should have said to Putin, something like this: Mr. President, we have the evidence that you did this. If it was me, I would have brought some of it with me and put it right in front of him. Secondly, I would have said to him, I understand that's in the past, but here's what I'm going to tell you now. I wasn't president then, but I am president now. And if you meddle in the 2018 or 2020 election, as you have done in 2016, not only am I going to slap the toughest sanctions on you that I possibly can, but I will tell you the relationship between you and me is over at that point. As long as I'm president of the United States, I will have nothing to do with you. And that is what he should have said publicly in front of our audience, so the world understood that Trump is standing up to Putin, and we are not going to appease this man, and we are certainly not going to let him take advantage of us the way it took today, and the president did that. The second problem I have with this thing is the president equated American behavior along with Russian behavior for the reason why our relationship is as bad as it is. The only reason this relationship is bad is because Putin is expanding territory in a way that nobody's done since Stalin. He's undermining all the democracies that oppose him, and he's coercing and intimidating all his Eastern European neighbors, most of whom are a part of NATO. And it is Putin who has created this relationship problem, not the United States. And that was another horrible example of absolutely misinformation on the part of the president.
I want to ask you why. But I don't think there's any excuse for it. I don't think we can sit here and hypothesize. It's just flat out wrong. Go ahead, General.
Yeah, the only thing I can come up with is it seems pretty obvious that he's got an absolute blind side when it comes to anything to deal with meddling in the election. There's two things here. One, we know they meddled. Two, we also know they didn't have any result. Okay, so move on, Mr. President. Do what you got to do with Putin so they don't do it again. But don't keep thinking that you're president of the United States and somehow because they tried to undermine our election, they failed, that it delegitimizes you. The fact that every time he hears the word, he thinks he's being challenged, that he's really not the president of the United States, that Hillary Clinton would have won the election. That's a bunch of rubbish.
Agreed.
Get it out of your head once and for all.
Yeah, no, that's what he needs to understand, because if he doesn't, General, his ego is going to get in the way of what needs to happen, and it's just wrong. I mean, for the President of the United States to essentially not be trusting his intelligence community, this was a sad day. This was an ugly day. And General, thank you for always being as honest as you are. Hopefully he he starts to listen to this and others who are willing to give him the advice he needs to hear. Anyway, thank you so much, sir.
Can I say one more thing,
Yes,
Trish?
absolutely.
You know, Putin lied his way through that whole thing. And it's typical propaganda that the Russians put out. You know, he's talking about something positive about Korea, but he's giving Korea, you know, oil and other commodities. He's talking about Crimea being legal when it's in violation of international law, a trumped-up referendum. We know for a fact that his air defense unit shot down the Malaysian airline and killed 300 innocent people. And we know for a fact that he's killed 15,000 people in Ukraine, and now he's trying to talk to the president about, let's work on this problem together. And the same thing in Syria. He's trying to say, well, we have common interests there. What are the common interests? He's been killing the Syrian people with his bombs. He's been blowing up hospitals that are underneath the ground. And he tolerated Assad using chemical weapons twice on his own people. That's the real Putin. And he lies his way through the whole press conference. We knew he would do it. That's why you have to call him out publicly.
Well, hopefully President Trump is not so naive as to not realize that, but certainly it was not one of his better days. Very disappointing indeed.